looking into my skills at the time, which were networking, operating systems, and a little bit of knowledge of how a physical server works and the storage and so on. So I lean in on all these top skills, and I realized that they should be also relevant for the cloud.
Hello and welcome to Cloud Career Mentor Show. We have a very special guest today. She has deep experience in the cloud industry and has worked at a lot of the major technology companies from IBM to Cisco, and now she's a senior solutions architect manager at AWS. Not only is she at the top of her game when it comes to management and cloud architecture, but she's also passionate about increasing the gender diversity in the cloud space, and she's the community co-founder of AWS Cloud Women, which is a community created to help women and underrepresented groups to share knowledge and progress in the cloud space. Welcome to the show, Laura Caicedo.
Thank you, Fayomi. Thank you so much for having me. It's actually my pleasure to be here today, and I'm so willing to share my tips and tricks for people who's actually exploring the cloud journey.
That's great. And I'm really excited to sort of dive into your history and how you were able to get to where you got to. But first, I want to know more about what you do today. So what's your title? What are your roles and responsibilities? That kind of thing.
So my title is a solution architect manager. I lead a team of solutions architect, and I work for startups. So my customers are normally startups that are either just starting or they have been actually operating for quite a while. My job is to make sure that my team is building the best strategies, best architectures, helping customers to embrace the cloud, helping customers to accelerate their journey and so on. And that's what I do today. And as you said, my part-time job and the one that I am really passionate about is helping others. So I also co-founded the AWS Cloud Women. We have been operating for almost 2 years. And the idea is to close the gender gap. So we want to get more women and underrepresented minorities into the cloud.
No, thanks for sharing that. And I've worked a lot with startups myself, and I know that that's quite an exciting time because they might be trying to figure out their technology, or maybe they have architecture that's already running and they need ways to improve and scale on it. So it must be a very exciting department to work in. But no, so thanks for sharing that. But now I want to go back to you being an intern at IBM in Colombia. How did you get into sort of IT support or that internship, and maybe just walk us through your career from there? Because I think a lot of people will be interested to learn about the journey.
So, as you said, I started my career in IBM as an intern. I work actually in a test factory. So, it was a software development company, like, or program. No, it's not program, sorry. It was like a software development house. And they were actually purchasing services from IBM to do all the testing. And I had to do a lot of testings on the software that was being developed. And that was my first job, my first actually taste of technology. And even though that it was very interesting and I learned a lot, I decided that that was not the path that I wanted to follow. So shortly after, I joined Cisco in an early in career program. So this was a program that was made for people who was just graduating from university. I had the privilege to go to the US, and I lived there for a year in Carolina. And during this time, pretty much I learned about all the Cisco technology. So routing and switching, but also collaboration. So if you have used WebEx and security and data center. After I graduated from the program, I moved back to Colombia and I started as a systems engineer for Cisco. And my job was helping to design data centers. So it was pretty much what it's now called on-prem. And I would help many customers to go and build their data center, and it entitles a lot of things. So core switch, top of the rack switch, server, what is the operating system, what is the virtualization, the storage, and so on. And that was such an interesting journey, but that was also the journey that got me close to the cloud, because every conversation that I had with customers, they were saying, well, now we need to connect our on-prem to the cloud. We are using something called hybrid cloud. which was still very new concept at the time. At that point, probably AWS had been operating for 6 years or so, so very early days. And I was like, okay, what is this cloud thing? And the more that I learned about it, the more that I got interested into how I could actually skill myself and work in cloud, because it was super obvious that it was going to be very relevant for the technology, and it was going to change the world, the way that many companies were actually consuming servers. So I moved to AWS after 4 years in Cisco. And yeah, I've been here for now 6 years and a half or so in AWS. Started as a solution architect, and then moved to the manager role a couple of years ago.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that. I think that's such an impressive story. And what I like about hearing about, stories like yours is that a lot of the time the journey to the cloud is very unplanned in a way. You sort of, you're going down one track in the technology world, and then you sort of spot that the cloud exists, and then you make the transition. And that's actually something I want to find out a bit more about. So you're working as a systems administrator or designing sort of on-prem data centers, and you figure out the cloud's a thing. What tactics did you use to sort of learn the cloud skills, or how were you able to make that transition from a system engineer to someone who works in the cloud?
As I said, like, I started to learn and I started to hear more and more people talking about cloud. So I definitely got interested, and I started studying by myself a little bit about like what was the cloud, how people could consume it, what was the main differentiators, and why would somebody move to the cloud, and so on. And the more that I learned, the more that I knew I wanted to work in cloud. So I had at the point a friend who had just moved from Cisco to AWS, so something very similar. So I reached out to him and I asked him, what are the skills that somebody needs to join AWS, and could you help me a little bit about what are the things that I have to learn? So at that point, there was not many resources as they are today. So he just gave me a list of different things that I should know, like and mainly was architectural design. So I was, as you said, like I was engineering data centers, designing data centers, but now I had to architect actually the applications and the solution that was gonna go on top of those servers. So completely different. And he helped me a little bit through this program or through this journey, up to the moment where I had the fortune that by chance AWS landed for first time and opened an office in Colombia. This was in 2017. And
Wow.
well, once I saw that, I was like, it's meant to be. Like, I really need to move faster, I need to learn, and I need to apply to this job because it's my dream job. And that was what happened. I apply, and I'm here today. So
No, that's an amazing story. And actually, I just want to clarify some things for our listeners, because we have some people who are looking to get into the cloud from different industries, like, I don't know, sales or teaching or something like that. And one thing I notice is that a lot of them want to go for solution architect roles like straight away. And I just want to confirm for my listeners, because at this point, you already had a lot of experience as a systems engineer or administrator. So you, I presume, understood networking, storage, compute. Like, I'm not sure if you're working on Linux or Windows, but I'm sure at this point you already had a lot of deep technical knowledge that you were able to then leverage when you were going to AWS. Is that correct?
yeah, definitely. And that was actually what I did. I leaned into my skills at the time, which were networking, operating systems, and a little bit of knowledge of how a physical server works and the storage and so on. So I leaned in on all these top skills, and I realized that they should be also relevant for the cloud. So I started to learn how a network it's translated into the cloud, like how a VLAN looks like in AWS and all those type of things. So I understood very deeply how networking works on AWS, and that was actually what's one of my skills when I applied to AWS. There were gaps, yes, of course, but I also tried to put a lot of emphasis and learn on what I was good already at the moment, which was networking and operating systems.
Are you interested in getting your first cloud job? If you answered yes, then I have a free guide just for you. This free guide walks you through a proven step-by-step process to help you get that first cloud job. It walks you through the 3 simple steps you can take today to make yourself highly employable. The link is in the description below, so make sure you download it now if you're interested. All right, let's get back to the show. No, that's great. Now I want to pick up the story. So you're at AWS, you're a cloud solutions architect. It'd be interesting to know sort of what your responsibilities were. So in the first year or so, and how they evolved over time, because now you're a manager of solutions architect. So I'm guessing your days look different, your responsibilities are a bit different, your skill set is different. And I think this is an interesting thing people want to know is that okay, let's say your job you have a job in the cloud industry or solutions, how can you then take those skills to the next level and sort of rise up in the industry?
So first of all, like there's so many different things to learn that for anyone who might be thinking about doing this jump, I would say there probably you will never get to the point where you will know everything about how the cloud operates. So take it easy and take step by step. So let's break it into more or less every 2 years. So when I joined AWS, there was a huge gap in my knowledge. I knew a lot about what I already said, but I didn't know about big data, or I didn't know about AI ML, or I didn't know about like serverless. And there was things that still were very relevant for our customers. So my first 2 years were a huge learning experience, and AWS is a fabulous place for that because it gives you all the tools all the time. You have many mentors and so on. So it gives you a lot of space for you to develop those skills. And that's exactly what I did. I signed up to build as much workshops as I could. I signed up to work on POCs with customers, and everything that was far from my knowledge, that was what I wanted to do. And after 2 years, I felt in a okayish place. So as I said, there's never going to be a place where you're a master on everything, because the cloud entitles so many different technology domains. So after 2 years, I felt okay. I could talk about most of the things, but maybe at that point was time for me to get into a little bit more complex customers. And that's what I did exactly. So at that point, I moved to the UK and I joined something called like middle-sized enterprise in the UK, which are like middle-sized enterprises, like pretty big companies that they are trying to move to the cloud or launch a new project. And I managed to work in very interesting ones, and especially where you're touching more the business. So customers like e-commerce that says, well, I want to follow how my customers are getting to purchase my products. So a little bit of like click streaming, big data. I also work on knowing your customers. So how are you going to get to know how your customers interact with you on social media, how they interact with you in your website, in your e-commerce, whatever it is. So there's more complex projects at that point, and that was really cool because I got more specialized into analytics and I expanded my knowledge in there. And of course, networking. So I've always been like a networking person, so that has been with me all the time. And then after 2 years, so 4 years in AWS, 2 years later, I moved into the manager role, which completely changed everything. So now I don't go out and talk to customers every day as I used to. Now I'm just making sure that my team is there with customers. I work as an escalation and I work as a customer sponsor, so a little bit more strategic to make sure that our customers are being served. The architectures are working, and make sure that everything is working well from their side. So yeah, completely different journeys every I would probably say every 2 years.
Yeah, no, I think that makes complete sense. And one of the things that I pulled out from what you were saying is, when you joined AWS, you leveraged all the learning they had, like you threw yourself into all the projects, all the POCs, And because I think sometimes a lot of people think, when they get that job in the cloud industry, they think the job's sort of over. And I try to tell them that, look, the job's just beginning, right? Like this is when you can really like learn and really grow, because I think there's only so much you can get from labs and just learning on your own. But by actually throwing yourself into real world projects with deadlines and other stakeholders, that's where a lot of the growth happens. It seems like you really like leveraged all the mentors and everything AWS had to offer to really accelerate your growth, which I think is very important for people to know that, you know, a lot of this success doesn't happen alone. You need sort of other people helping, guiding, and all of that. So no, thanks for sharing that. And this might come with what you've just said, but what actions or attributes do you think helped you to progress the most in your career?
Well, yes, partially yes. So what I've already said. So throw yourself into your uncomfort zone, like outside of your comfort zone. Do it very often, because otherwise there is not much room to learn. Get into raise your hand for difficult projects. Raise your hand to help others, and that will also help you in your career, because you'll start meeting more people. You'll start networking and so on. So definitely being proactive and being curious has helped me a lot. The second thing, probably, I would say, is getting yourself surrounded of good team. So knowing that you have somebody who you can go and ask for help, like my friend, when I was trying to do this transition, that actually helped me to figure out how to do it. Having people around you is very important, and the only way that you're going to meet that people is going there and raising your hand and asking for help. Otherwise, no. And then the third one, I would probably say being open to different changes and being open to what it comes. Sometimes we have like a very planned agenda for our careers or for our job, and sometimes life has different plans for us. So yeah, be open that anything that's it's coming to you will be good if you decide that that's how you want to take it for yourself.
I think that's excellent advice. And even with the first thing you said about just volunteering for jobs, and I remember at the start of my cloud journey when I got my first cloud job, I set myself the intention that any work that no one else wanted to do, I'd do it. Even stuff I didn't feel like doing or I didn't feel confident doing, I'd do it, because like you say, that's how you learn, by sort of pushing yourself and doing the difficult things. And once you do them a couple of times, they become easy. So I think that's a good point. Also, I think opening up oneself to opportunities and just keeping one's eye open. Like I mentioned, a lot of people are very laser focused, like, oh, I want to be a solution architect. And when it's like, when they could have other opportunities, like, oh, let's start as a cloud engineer or as a system administrator, or all these other avenues where they can build those skills that would get them to become solutions architect in the future. Or maybe they might even decide, actually, I really enjoy this other path I'm on. And I think as long as you're just enjoying the technology, you're enjoying learning, opportunities will open up. So yes, thanks again for sharing that. Now, here's a question I like to ask people, because I feel like the online world is full of, get into tech, you earn six figures just from doing two certifications. And I think there's a lot of unrealistic expectations about the industry. And so this is basically a two-part question. The first question is, what's one positive thing about working in the cloud industry? And the second question is, what's one negative thing, something that you could do without, or something that you wish was better about working in the cloud industry?
Positive things about working in the cloud, it's mainly that the cloud, it's not one thing. The cloud is like many different things, and you can as you said, like, you can decide what you want. Maybe you end up being a systems administrator in the cloud. Maybe you end up being a solutions architect. Maybe you end up being a consultant and doing some hands-on implementation. But not only that, the amount of technology domain that the cloud entitles. You can become a data scientist and working in the cloud. You can become a data analyst and become really relevant and experienced with all the different technologies that the cloud is providing. You can become just a DevOps as well, and then you become really familiar with all the CI/CD tools that the cloud has, right? You can become a networking specialist for the cloud. So there's so many technology domains, and there is so many possibilities that just getting into the cloud doesn't mean only one thing. It means so many things, and it depends on what you want and what you like and where your skills are. So for the second part, which is what is not so good, maybe. Okay, before I jump that, the other thing that I want to say is that the cloud, the very positive is the cloud is expanding exponentially. There's still many and a huge room for the cloud to grow, and it means that there will be more jobs and more companies that need people who is specialized and who has knowledge about this. So there, the opportunities are there, and they will be there if you decide to take this challenge. Now, in the not so good one, I guess it's the rapid change as well. So many things are being many things that were relevant 1 year ago, maybe they don't exist anymore, they're not relevant, and with that it means that you need to keep updating yourself. It means that the learning is never over. You take one certification and then it expires, but not only that, it actually, the technology changed, and now you need to understand how it works and learn it again, or there was a new tool that was launched, and it means that you have to have that passion for knowledge and for learning, because it's changing very fast, and for you to not become outdated, it means that you need to put time and hours into all this new knowledge.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think what you said about always having to learn new things, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, in my opinion, because on the one hand, it's really exciting when you're learning new things and you're improving yourself. But also it can be a bit of a drain when, you feel like you're on top of something and then boom, a new thing gets released and you have to learn that as well. So it's definitely something to look out for. And yeah, like if you're the kind of person that enjoys learning, enjoys moving forward, I think that that's very good news. And
And I just
also,
want to add one thing to what you just said, and it's a very good skill to have for any person who works in technology, is the capacity to learn. Like, as a solution architect, that would happen to me, where I would jump into a customer call, and then the customer would say, "Oh, you just launched this yesterday," and I had no idea. Um, so it was terrifying at the beginning, but then I understand that I had all the capacity to go and learn, and I would say, "Hey, Mr. Customer, I'm not up to date, but I'll come back tomorrow and I'll let you know how it can help your business." And then I will go and I learn, and I have all the foundations in place to actually understand why this was relevant and how it would fit into the bigger picture, and that's it. So that capacity to learn is really, really key.
no, that's great. And here's a little tip for those people who are wondering how to keep up to date with AWS releases and things like that. If you have a Slack channel, you can actually connect to an RSA feed. So every time AWS makes an announcement of something new, you get an alert in your Slack. So that's one way I found was quite good in terms of just seeing the new changes at a glance and deciding, okay, do I want to read more or not? So that's just a free tip for you guys. So yeah, no, thanks for sharing that. Um, so what advice? Because I know you mentor a lot of people. You help people who are looking to break into the cloud industry, and I think because you're a manager, so this is actually going to be a two-pronged question as well. So the first question I have is: imagine you're giving advice to someone who they're not coming from a technical background. They don't have 4 or 5 years as a sysadmin like you did. They were a teacher. Now they're looking to break into the cloud. What advice would you give them in terms of what would you recommend they learn? What's like actionable skills, like specific skills? And the next half of the question, which I just wanted to think about as well, is okay, let's say you have someone who's already a DevOps engineer or even a solutions architect, and they want to take the next step into being more of a manager or getting more senior, what advice you'd give them. But let's start with the first one. So someone new just coming into the cloud, what should they do?
First of all, I would say that where there is a will, there is a way. If you are really serious into getting into the cloud, then make sure that you are putting time and effort into this, because nothing is free in this life. And in order to achieve it, then you will need to put some effort, especially if you have no background. So it won't be easy. Don't believe those things that you'll take, as you were saying, like you'll take the certification and then you'll land into a job. Maybe some people does, but it's very unlikely. So uh be conscious of the reality. Be conscious that you will need to put hours and effort before anything happens, and it might take a while. So don't get disappointed if it doesn't take into the first attempt. It will happen sometimes. Again, like if you apply to 100 jobs, you just need one to say yes, and it can be the 100th one that you apply. So have some resilience and be serious about it, because before you start you embark yourself into this journey, ask yourself this question, like, am I able to get 99 rejections? And then, am I able to follow up? Am I able to put the time on it? So if the answer is yes, then that's where my advice goes. First of all, you don't do this alone. Like, there's already many people who has cracked it, many people who has had the same journey than you. So get into LinkedIn, start asking people who has done these similar changes. Get into different mentors. Get yourself some mentors that has done it. Take courses. There's plenty of not only the certification but also some courses and so on. So get some help to actually do it, and then start studying. Of course, like, depends on where you want to land. Maybe talk to people or analyze what are the skills that are like a must to land into the job. Remember what I said before, like the cloud is so broad that what is that you want to do? Do you want to become a DevOps engineer, or you want to become a solutions architect, or you want to become a data analyst consultant? Because completely different things. So maybe check what are the jobs that people is hiring for, and depends on that, see what calls your attention, talk to people who has done their job. So like, narrow a little bit what are the things that you are going to learn depending on where you want to land. And yeah, there's plenty of.
Yeah, just to add to that, like I think what you said about having resilience is so important. Breaking into the cloud industry is a marathon, not a sprint. And I think that, like, just even having that perspective is really important, because if you think it's going to take you, like, I don't know, 6 weeks to get your first job, and by week 5, you're not getting any calls from recruiters, it's very easy to get dejected because your expectations aren't aligned with reality. But if you're like, all right, I'm going to give myself a year, or rather, I'm not even going to give myself a timeline. I'm just going to enjoy learning the technology. I'm just going to make the right moves, like you were saying, Laura. Even when you do get the job, you're still going to have to keep learning. So it's like just building in that learning mindset from the start, where it's like, look, my priority is just to learn as much as I can, talk to as many people as I can, and just focus on what you do. I think that's so important. And I think by just having that mindset, you're already like ahead of most people. And my general advice for a lot of people is, what I found is that if you don't have any technical experience, it's very difficult to become a solutions architect, because you're basically dealing with people's businesses, right? Like, if you make a mistake, that could cost the company millions. And so what I found is that for a lot of people, it's actually easier to become a cloud engineer or a DevOps engineer, because your damage is more limited, because maybe you're just focusing on technical implementation that a solution architect has designed. So the risk to the employer is a lot lower. So that's why I usually recommend people learn those technical skills. So, for example, make sure you're very comfortable with Linux. Make sure you've done some high quality AWS projects that you can show to employers, that you can talk about in interviews. Make sure you've done some work with CI/CD, Terraform, and learn a programming language. Because, Laura, I do think, because I think I got into the cloud around the same time as you, about 6 years ago, and I actually think it's gotten a lot harder, because 6 7 years ago there were less people who knew about the cloud. So if you had some skills, I think the landscape was different. Whereas now, there's a boot camp on every corner, right? Like, everyone's talking about the cloud, and naturally that just breeds more competition. And so I think it's so important to do what you can to stay ahead of everyone else. And I really like your point, Laura, about getting mentors, because you want to talk to people who are actually working in the cloud industry, who knows exactly what employers are looking for, and then they can guide you. So yeah, no, thanks for sharing that. And
Last thing I would say, it's just a
yeah.
little bit of promotion onto one program that AWS runs. It's called
Mm,
AWS Restart, and it's about that. It's about helping you to restart your career. Either you had a break, either you come from completely different background, and so on. So get it's free as well, so you can go there and just explore it yourself as well.
yeah, no, I've spoken with a couple of people who've done that, and yeah, it's a really great way to get started in the cloud and AWS and learn those fundamentals. So that's great. Thanks for sharing. And yeah, the other part of the question is, okay, they already work in the cloud. Let's say you're like a DevOps engineer or solutions architect, and you just want to become more senior. What sort of activity should they do to build that sort of senior awareness? And yeah, just what skills should they improve on?
I think that becoming more senior, um, my it's my means getting more technical knowledge, but for me becomes more about how you solve problems and how you take actually ownership of those problems. For me, somebody who has a huge amount of technical knowledge, not necessarily somebody who can like be promoted or scale their career faster. For me, it's about that combination of knowledge, yes, technical knowledge, but how it is applied to to the business. And at the end of the day, like when we create a CI/CD pipeline or when we create an S3 bucket, it's because a business needs something. They need to push some code for a new release in their application to be able customers to buy the new products, or they need to save some pictures from satellites. I don't know, there is a need. So when you start asking yourself what is the need behind this and how could I improve it, then maybe you start actually impacting the business and eventually having more impact in your company, and then that's the moment where a promotion or when becoming more senior can happen. So yes, go learn. Maybe you can become the expert in CICD and learn everything about it, but not necessarily that will take you further. What actually will take you further is understanding what you're solving, what is the problem, taking the responsibility, and maybe even like what you said earlier, like taking the job that nobody wants to do. Why nobody wants to do it? Because it's complex. And probably if it needs to be done and it's complex, is because the business really need it. So if you understand why and how you can do it, then that's the sweet spot that we all want to be.
Yes, I really love the fact that you said that, because yeah, business awareness is so important, and I think it's something a lot of technical people overlook, because they want to build like the shiny thing, lambdas with 10 functions shooting out, but the solution always has to be in service of the business, both the business needs as well as the business constraints as well, because there might be some things that, even though it's like best practice or it's like the shiny new thing, but it's not right for that particular business context. And so being able to design solutions based on a business context is really important. And also being able to communicate as well. How well are you communicating with the clients? Are you keeping them up to date? They feel comfortable hearing from you? Or are you just, head down, focused on the work, and the client's chasing you like, oh, what's the status of the project? So I think, yeah, just to add to your point, I think also being able to communicate effectively is really crucial.
100%, like communication as well is key in like in any company, but I think that in tech, being able to sometimes explain that technical complex project that you're working to somebody who understands nothing about technology, and being able to convey that message, it's key and it will help you. So yes.
Yeah, thank you so much. You've been so generous with your time, and I'm sure like a lot of my listeners are going to appreciate all the things you've said. So the last thing for me to say is, is there anything you're working on that you'd like to share or promote anywhere my listeners can connect with you? Where would you like to point them?
Well, I'd love to point them to AWS Club Women. Um, I am very passionate about becoming, or because, sorry, about getting more women into the cloud. There is a gap of number of women who works in IT, and the gap in cloud jobs is becoming even larger. So if, and I'm sorry for your listeners, but if you're a woman or if you're an ally, come and search us in LinkedIn as AWS Club Woman. If you are in London, then come and see us in our, we have monthly events, we have mentorship, we have certifications, boot camps, we have many different things. And yeah, feel free to connect with me in LinkedIn. I'm really happy to help any woman or underrepresented minority in this journey.
Sounds good, and I'll put all the links in the show notes as well. So if you're listening, you can go check it out. All right. Thanks so much for your time, Laura, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you, Fayomi. Bye bye.